Ninja Gaiden, one of the titans of the hack and slash who suffered a very tragic death by the hands of some questionable games. Or well, that was the case until now. 2025 marks the revival of the franchise with 3 separate titles designed to cater to different sections of the fanbase. A remaster of one of the most beloved entries in the series, a new 2D title to please the fans of the very first Ninja Gaiden games, and of course, a totally new entry in the 3D section of the franchise. And this title is, at least in my opinion, the very best the series has ever given us. You wanna know why? Then stay with me while we cover everything that makes this game awesome in this video. Or well, videos. I decided to separate this video in 2 parts because there are just too many things to talk about. In this first part, we're gonna talk about Jakotsum's gameplay, the enemies, and the bosses of the game. While on the second video we'll cover Ryu's gameplay, the DLCs, and we'll talk a bit about the story as well. So with everything said, let's get into the core of this title. Jakotsumon. Let's start with the basics of your gameplay, because a lot of things changed from previous games. In this title, you still have light and heavy attack buttons, but the way they integrate themselves into combos is totally different. In the other games, you have a long list of strings that are performed with different combinations of said buttons. With the addition of an X direction forward, and sometimes by holding certain buttons in particular attacks. If this sounds like too much, it's because it is. You can get used to the weapons and memorize a lot of the combos, but it's kind of a hard system to wrap your head around at first. Ninja Gaiden 4 said, scrap all of that, let's make things more simple. In this game you have a light attack combo, a heavy attack combo, and extra combinations that result from pressing the heavy attack in different points of the light combo. For example, if you use a heavy attack after the first light attack, you get the traditional launcher. If you do it after the second attack, you get an attack jumping back that can be followed up by the flying swallow, and so on. The point is that the combination system is a lot simpler, and in this case, I'd say that's a good thing. You might say that this new take limits a lot the number of moves you can have with each weapon, and yeah, that's true. But again, I think it was highly unlikely that you were going to remember every single combo with every weapon. And it's not like you will only be using the base combos. In this game, every weapon has 4 special attack inputs, a back forward attack and a 360 attack, with both your light and heavy attacks, which give you access to more moves in ways you didn't have in previous games. At most, you will get a 360 attack with your heavy button, that you at least could charge for an ultimate technique, and a heavy attack forward for an immediate launcher. That was it. Now every weapon has extra moves that can add a lot to their kit, like Jakotsum's dual swords for example. They have a fast moving attack similar to DMC's Stinger, which is not something you would have seen in any of the previous games. The universal abilities seem to be working pretty similarly. I couldn't find any major differences with the way the Suna drop and the flying swallow work here compared to the previous titles. At most, now that after landing an Suna drop, you can use an ultimate technique if you time it perfectly after touching the ground, which is something that it got from Ninja Gaiden 3. The one move that has been noticeably improved is one I didn't pay too much attention before. The guillotine throw. This is a simple move. You press the jump and light attack buttons at the same time and your character does a jump in the direction of an enemy. Press the buttons again when you reach the enemy and your character will grab them and throw them forward. It could be used to hit them against the wall or other enemies. In previous games it was just that. Not a bad move, but nothing interesting enough for me to use it in my playthroughs. This game changed that. The move can't only be used after a special jump anymore. It can be used anytime you are in the air. Maybe you did a normal jump and just happen to be close to an enemy. Boom! Guillotine throw. An enemy is blocking your melee attacks. Boom! Guillotine throw. It's awesome. It feels like a move that is available a lot of the times and can be used both offensively to attack multiple enemies in a crowd, but there are certain enemies immune to this move, so you have to be careful. And it can also be used defensively. The attack is considered a grab, and as such you cannot be hit until the move ends. So you can be in a tough situation about to take a hit, but then you quickly grab an enemy at the perfect time, become invincible, and avoid the damage. It's insane! It's become a multi-purpose move usable a lot more often than before that can help you turn the tables in intense moments. I love it. Other mechanics, well, the projectile system is gone. Lost are the days where I would complain about long-range weapons having ammunition limits. Now they don't even exist anymore. I guess I owe Ninja Gaiden 1 an apology. But getting serious now, the only thing they kept were the shurikens, which became their own ability a long time ago, to be fair. Bows, kunais, and everything else are just not things you will see in this game, which does make me a little sad. And something similar happened to the Nimbo system. It is still here, but it's only present for Ryu. Jakotsumon hasn't learned to control the elements just yet. Another thing that changed were your defensive mechanics. The counter system from the previous games was left behind. Now you can't attack in the middle of a block string to counter the enemies. Instead, you have to either do a perfect block or a parry, and only after those you can do a counter attack with a massive hitbox. You also have a perfect dodge mechanic, which looks very cool, and yes, you can also do a unique attack after performing one of those. This attack gives you invincibility for a couple of seconds, so it's useful even if the enemies keep attacking you. But if you time this attack right after your character touches the ground, yes, you guessed it, you can use an instant ultimate technique like what you can do after landing a jump. This is especially notable since now you can also block and dodge in the air, which gives you the chance to perfect dodge something and land into a dodge attack or even an ultimate technique right away. Another relevant change is the resistance of your block. In previous games, you could maybe take a couple of hits and certain attacks are just so strong that they break your guard instantly. In this game, you have a set number of attacks you can block regardless of damage. And the only attacks that will instantly break your defense are range attacks signaled by these red icons, so you have to dodge those.
Oh no!
Defense in general feels a lot more dynamic and diverse than in previous games. I really like it a lot. And if we're talking about defense, we gotta talk about your movement as well. In the first game, your character's parkour abilities were used constantly for platforming and could be used decently in combat encounters. But after the first game, instead of exploring the possibilities of this system, they tone it down to be almost irrelevant a lot of the time. Ninja Gaiden 4, thankfully, goes a long way to rectify this. Your wall run and wall jump abilities are once again used for multiple platforming sections. But not only that, they added new ways of traversing between levels like these rail grinding sections. They throw obstacles at your way to keep you engaged and just look pretty fucking cool sometimes. That's one thing, but I think the more important additions are the ninja gadgets. These are equipments designed to be used in specific situations. There are 3. There's a surf table to use in water segments, and this game thankfully didn't bring back the underwater levels, let's go! A couple of wings to fly in wind segments, and what is definitely the most meaningful inclusion, the grappling hook. This is a wire that you can use to quickly pull yourself to specific spots or swing like Spider-Man. Spectacular, spectacular Spider-Man, spectacular, spectacular Spider-Man. The spots where you can use this are not only placed in platforming sections, but in fighting arenas as well, meaning that, depending on the stage, you have an extra movement option. You cannot use this to pull yourself to enemies like in DMC, but a lot of the time you'll have enemies close to the grappling spots, so you can still close gaps using this. Assuming you have some spots higher up, you can use this to gain some height and deal with flying enemies, or you can even use it as a quick way to avoid certain attacks, which I think shines more against specific bosses like Kagachi and the demon fox thingy. Combine that with more uneven arenas that allow you to use your traditional platforming options, and you get a game with a lot of fights that stand out because of where the fight takes place. And a specific example I always think about is this fight in the first level. You have a standard ground, but you also have 2 platforms higher up where long-range enemies stay to attack you. You can use the hooks in the platforms themselves to close the distance or even swing from one side of the stage to the other. You can stay on those platforms and wait for enemies to get up and surprise them with an ultimate technique, but if they overwhelm you, it's hard to get out of that situation. It's a very cool fight where a lot of things can happen, and I think a big part of that is how it takes advantage of its more unique design. And okay, looking at things like this, it is true that there are some relevant changes, but you could still assume that it plays mostly like a Ninja Gaiden from the good old days. But let me tell you that you're wrong, stupid, and uncool. Just kidding, you're pretty cool. This game added two very important mechanics that changed the dynamics of this title entirely. The first one, which I honestly think should have been here way sooner, is weapon switching. Yes, like in DMC. Now you have the ability to change between all of your weapons at any time. You have 4 weapons, all very unique from each other. Your starting weapon is a couple of short katanas. Being 2 swords, you could think they're similar to the double blades Ryu has used before, but no, they have totally different moves. Yakumo's swords are kinda short and he uses them in combination with some kicks or just spinning around, with special moves like the slash forward I mentioned previously and the spinning attack. This works pretty well for a standard all-rounder weapon. Your second weapon is this weird, almost drill looking blade. Most of its moves are standing attacks, so it's useful if you're trying to quickly close the gap with enemies, and it also just happens to have a lot of launchers for some reason. Then you get the staff. You could think that this weapon plays like Ryu's lunar staff, but again, not at all. This is the opposite of the rapier, if that can even be called a rapier. It has a lot of spinning attacks that are useful to deal with enemies surrounding you. And lastly, you have the Box of Death, I think. And this is a pretty unorthodox weapon. It's quite literally a box from which Jakumo can pull a wide variety of weapons. For its light attack, it uses giant shurikens and bombs, while the heavy attacks can pull many different weapons like Tonfast, nunchakus, claws, and more depending on the attack combination. Its main use would be for long range attacks, but you can still do some cool things at close range. It's also interesting because this is the first time this series does the wacky weapon trope. DMC, for example, always gives Dante at least one strange weapon that works nothing like the others, and even from the concept you can tell it was designed to be weird. Ninja Gaiden never did that before. Ryu only used traditional ninja weapons. Some of them might have magical properties, but they still play like a standard weapon. The Box of Death is the first truly out of this world weapon, and I think it works. It still feels very serious and straight to the point like everything in this series, but you can see how this weapon stands out compared to the others. It's very cool. So as you can see, every weapon has a different purpose and they work well by themselves, but it's the combination of them what truly makes it all come together. You can start combos with one weapon and change to another in real time, go from fighting entire crowds to focusing on a single enemy, send opponents far away and target them with your projectiles. The possibilities are endless. Jakumo is an absolute beast with everything he can do. There aren't that many action game characters that are as all-encompassing as he is, while at the same time feeling so simple to understand. You have 4 weapons, every one of them has a niche where they excel at, you can change them at any time. Now get out there and go absolutely crazy. Oh, and by the way, yeah, I know he has 2 extra weapons. One of the weapons is DLC and there's another weapon that you get very late into the game. I'm gonna talk about those extra weapons in the next video. I think they are very different from what you get here in a lot of ways, so I think it's better to keep the focus on these 4 main weapons here. But you wanna know what's the most ridiculous part? That this isn't even everything Jakumo can do. We still have to talk about his greatest mechanic. Die! The Blood Raven forms. You see this? Okay, now look at this. Pretty cool, huh? Now look at this. Yeah, every single weapon you have can access a blood version with unique attacks, so your moveset becomes basically twice as big. But that's not my favorite part about this. I appreciate the massive effort they went through to create these extra versions of the weapons. They could have just added a red aura, increase your stats, and call it a transformation, and I wouldn't even be all that mad if they did that, seeing everything else the mechanic adds, but I'm so happy they were anything but lazy with this. And when I say this, I mean it. In this form, not only your light and heavy attacks change completely, so do your shuriken and jump buttons. The former giving you a projectile with every weapon, and the latter giving you super jumps that also have unique follow-ups. He even has small little hops forward he does with the Ninja Gadget buttons that have follow-ups too. It's insane. But this mechanic isn't only good because it gives you a lot more moves, but for what you can do with them. The blood weapons not only have attacks for basically every combo and input the base weapons have, with the exception of the ultimate techniques, but almost all of those attacks also have improved versions accessed differently with each weapon. For the sword, you have to charge them to get more range. The drill lets you hold the button after an attack for extra hits. If you release the button at the perfect time, with the hammer the moves get extra follow-ups, and the box of death works like a mix of the last two. You can hold them for extra hits, and there's a perfect release window for a special finisher. So every weapon asks you to understand them in a different way to access their full potential, with the hammer in particular being quite hard to master with those perfect timings. On top of this, the blood weapons can be used in situations where normal attacks can't. Enemies have these special rage attacks. These moves are stronger than normal moves, cannot be interrupted by your base attacks, and they also break your guards, so they are important moves to look out for. You can either try to dodge them, or be brave and use your blood attacks. These moves are the only thing that can take enemies out of this enraged state, and it also leaves them vulnerable for extra attacks, which makes the whole game a lot more dynamic since you're constantly looking for these windows to attack the enemies. But you have to be careful because being hit by one of these moves can be a significant punishment. It's almost like a power hierarchy. You and the enemies are normally on similar levels. When they get enraged they overpower you, but when you use the blood form you overpower them. Oh, you also overpower their defense. In this game, enemies can block normal attacks but are vulnerable to blood moves or grabs. More points to the guillotine throw, yay! So now you're probably wondering, what is the catch? Such a powerful mechanic surely must have some kind of limitation, right? And yes, you got me, you have a meter. If that meter goes to 0, you cannot use your blood moves again until you fill it to around 25%. It doesn't matter how much energy an attack costs, you can have 1% of the bar and still use attacks that take a third of it. You only get punished if you take the bar all the way to 0, which is nice. You have 3 ways to fill the bar. You can wait for it to fill itself. Yeah, I don't think that's very fun. To fill it faster, you can land attacks. Those help a little bit, but the fastest way to fill it is using obliteration techniques. You get good chunks of energy at once when using this, which makes the obliterations more important in the long term than in 2. In that game, you get to kill an enemy, and that's it. But here, yeah, and yes, in 3, you not only get that, but are also rewarded with a bit of energy that you can use to kill more enemies and get more meter and so on and so forth. Your meter can also be used to block and range attacks, but that consumes a lot of your bar, so no, I wouldn't recommend you using that. I have to be honest, this is one of the best mechanics I've seen in a hack and slash. It's both a simple fun mechanic that gives you more weapons, and an intricate system that defines a lot of interactions with enemies and bosses. It expands your combo possibilities to an insane amount, but it's also tied to a resource so you can't abuse it mindlessly. And it's also just unbelievably cool. The obliterations with these attacks are just insane on another level. The game as a whole would not be the same without this mechanic. And just small parenthesis here, yes, I understand it makes sense for Blood Raven forms to be a limited resource, they do so much for you, but couldn't they have added like a super Jakomo like DMC does with the super characters? Because imagine being able to play with infinite Blood Raven meter, just for the fun of it. That would be insane, I want to have that would be so cool. That was all I wanted to say, closing parenthesis. Oh, and also, there is another extra mechanic I almost forgot, the rage meter. It's simple, basically you fill this bar by fighting and using obliteration techniques. And once it's full you can activate it, and now a lot of the blood moves will become insta-kills if you're using their charge/health variants. And if you try to use the transformation again, you will get a super attack for each weapon that also instantly kills anything but bosses. And even then it deals a significant amount of damage to those bosses. It's a good way to take down enemies in desperate situations or just finish the fight quickly. The bar feels very slowly and it starts to decrease if you're not in a fight, so it's not like you can start an encounter with the ability to insta-kill enemies most of the time. So in that sense it doesn't feel like it breaks the game, despite literally one-touching enemies. And yeah, we've come a long way. Those are all the relevant mechanics that Jakotsumon has, but we can't talk about an action game if we don't also talk about the enemies. Enemies in this game follow the standard the previous game set up. You can face both human opponents working for an opposing faction, and then demons with different abilities that want you dead. Unlike previous titles though, here the humans you face aren't traditional ninjas, but part of a high-tech army, so they are equipped with futuristic looking weapons like electrical blades, giant shurikens, jetpacks, and big missile launchers. There's even a mini-boss that's a high-tech tank basically. And he kinda sucks, like, I don't really like him all that much. The demons slash fiends slash jomas, I think,
Is that the demon?
are different. Some of them return here once again to become enemies present in every mainline 3D game, which like, whoa. But there are a lot of new faces here. There are zombie looking enemies that spit acid to damage you, demonic dogs, these flying guys that shoot small tornadoes, these statue or living relic things that like to erupt like a volcano but cannot move. Idiots! And some big boys like this demon face monster and these white lion chimeras. They are heavy, so they tend to block your combos, and they cannot be getting prone most of the time, so they force you to be more careful around them. For the most part, I like this enemy roster. Throughout the campaign, you'll explore places inhabited by humans and places inhabited by demons, so you never see too much of a single enemy type in a row. And there aren't many enemies that feel annoying or overpowered. If I had to complain about someone, I'd mention the flying fish. I've hated them since the first game. And these cloud looking things. They can fight you at both close and long range and have a fast attack with 3 bites that is annoying when you're focusing on other enemies. But as a whole, I think the generic enemies that you're going to be facing are fine. What worries me are the big guys of this title. The bosses. Actually, screw you, I lied. Massive spoilers incoming. This game has the best bosses in the series and it's not even close. Your first fight is against this cool soldier with awesome music in the background. The demons you have to defeat to get your extra weapons are very creative, make use of the gimmicks of their stages in a way that doesn't feel intrusive, and the flying dog in particular talks and has a cool personality. Kagachi might not have as much presence in the story as I would like, we'll get to that in the next video, but his fight is an absolute top-notch rival fight. He's fast, cool, forces you to pay attention to his attacks and fish for vulnerable moments, and on the second phase, yeah, I forgot to mention that, most bosses have a second phase where they use new abilities. He gets a magical new arm and can do attacks that cover almost all of the stage. It's insanity. Ryu is a fight that was meant to happen. To the point, early in the game you get an encounter with him that you're expected to lose, so his actual fight is a rematch on top of everything. We've had fights with characters that are similar to Ryu in the past, we had a fight with a copy of Ryu in 3, but none of that can compare to the feeling that is fighting the real Ryu Hayabusa himself. He attacks you using the same combos and attacks from his playable variant, he has long strings that can really damage your guard if you aren't careful, he will use his iconic moves like the Suna drop and the flying swallow, he will throw shurikens for cheap damage, and if you aren't careful he will even attempt to hit you with an ultimate technique, and you would be lucky to survive that. If you manage to get past all of that and beat his phase 1, he will become more aggressive and even start using the Nimpo spells against you. I can't help but love this fight. It's amazing. And lastly, the final boss of the game, the Dark Dragon, who was a bit, I don't know, underwhelming? He's this massive dragon that flies around the platform you're standing on and tries to attack you in different ways. Beat him there, and for the next phase you get to the top of destroyed buildings and you have to go from platform to platform to avoid some of his attacks. Who does this remind me of? I feel like it should be quite difficult, but the dragon uses a lot of rage attacks that can be easily cancelled with the Box of Death blood attacks and leave the dragon vulnerable for combos. It didn't take me all that long to start beating his first phase and taking no damage, which is not something I can say for any of the other bosses I mentioned. Then you have to go through a flying sequence where nothing can damage you to start the second phase. I wouldn't mind it if it was a one-time thing, but no. Every time you lose, you start the fight again from the first phase, which is annoying considering how easy it is. The second phase at least has more interesting attacks and isn't as easy to no damage. For what it's worth, the stage is incredibly cool, but that sadly doesn't compensate for such a weak ending to this game. Wait. What's happening? No, there's no way. Right? Oh, let's go! Yep. Wasn't expecting that when I first played this game. Beating the Dark Dragon rewards you with the nice surprise of an evil Jakomo boss fight. And of course, I love this fight. The evil version of you fights mostly with the dual blades, being able to access both normal and blood form attacks, and teleports all over the place. After beating his first phase, he also starts using Dark Dragon moves like a Fire Breath, making the fight a lot more difficult and, in my opinion, worthy of being the true final challenge of this game. With all that said, I think it's pretty clear why I consider this to be the best game in the series when it comes to gameplay. Previous systems have been revamped to work in more interesting ways, and the new mechanics give the title a fresh air that separates it from the other games in the franchise. I can't think of any big complaints I have with this title, or at least with what we saw in this video. Ryu was a playable character, and the treatment he gets in this game, well, let's just say that I have more mixed opinions about it, but we'll leave that for the next video. Everything about Jakomo's gameplay is top tier hack and slash, and if you haven't played it yet, you definitely should do it now. And yes, this is an order, go do it now. So thank you so much for watching this video until the end. I appreciate if you liked it, subscribe, and tell me your favorite thing about this game in the comments. We'll cover the rest of the game in the second part, so until then, take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.